Hey everybody, how's it going? For this episode, I got a little long-winded, no surprise to anybody there, so I went ahead and split this one into two separate episodes. So this first episode is going to be episode 4, and it's going to cover some general topics around headphones and studio monitors. The bit on acoustic treatment, I'll split out into the next episode, and we'll see that one for episode 5. So for now, I hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, how's it going? Let's talk about your home recording studio. This is going to be episode 4 of the Home Recording Basics series. Today we're going to cover headphones, monitors, and acoustic treatment. So you've got your beautiful sounding sound source, you've got your microphone that's going to capture it, you've got your audio interface that's going to get it to your computer. Now it's time to listen to what you're doing. When it comes to headphones, you're going to need to get a good pair of closed back headphones. You're not going to want to use earbuds or, I guess I'm dating myself, like, even the old Walkman style on the ear type of headphones, because they suffer from a couple of very major problems. Not only do they have a very limited frequency response, which means they don't reproduce low frequencies or very high frequencies all that well, but they also tend to suffer from what's called leakage. Leakage means that the outside world can hear what the headphones are doing. So like little earbuds, if you ever sat next to somebody at work or on the bus or something that's listening to earbud headphones, they've got it turned way up loud, you can hear those things sitting next to them almost as well as they can hear them when they're in their ears, in their ear canal. So think about when you're sitting in front of a very sensitive microphone. If you have headphones that are going to leak sound out of them, the microphone is going to hear that. It's going to include that with the sound of, I don't know, your voice or whatever you're recording at the time. So a good pair of closed back studio style headphones over the ear, they fit over your entire ear, and those are going to really help prevent that leakage from happening. As soon as you put those things over your ears and they kind of seal a little bit, then they tend to be much better about letting sound out. And I mentioned closed back headphones because there are other over-the-ear headphones that are known as open back headphones. Their kind of defining characteristic is more that they sound a little better, I guess. I don't know. I kind of hate to put it in subjective terms like that, but it's a little easier to get open back headphones to sound a little more natural, to have a little more balanced frequency response. But the problem is they tend to be kind of leaky just due to their design. For tracking, anytime you're recording with a microphone in front of you, you want closed back headphones. Here I have, this is a very common set of headphones that home recording people use. These are from the brand Sennheiser, and these are their HD 280 Pro. These cost about $100. It's a little pricey if you're just getting your very first set or you're on a budget. Honestly, I think it's a great investment. I've had these for several years now. While they're a little the kind of fake leather stuff on the padding here is starting to peel off, and it leaves little kind of black flakes around. But all this stuff is replaceable. If this stuff truly wears out and it bothers you, you can actually buy replacement padding for the top of the headband. You can buy replacement padding for the ear cups, and you can even buy a different cord if your cord shorts out on you. That's what I like about these phones. At the $100 price point, that may be a little bit more than you're looking to spend if you're just getting started. There are other brands like AKG. Their Tascam makes some closed back headphones, and there are a couple other brands that make some more kind of budget minded. So since you're looking for closed back headphones, you're buying them for the purpose of tracking, just so your microphone doesn't hear you while you're tracking. Your main concern isn't necessarily sound quality. Now, these actually do sound very good, but the actual sound quality, as long as you can hear what's playing through them and they don't leak too badly, that's going to fulfill all your needs that you're going to need for tracking. Now, when it comes to monitoring, if you're going to try to mix through headphones, which I can only recommend when you're very first starting out, just because studio monitors are expensive, and I understand not being able to make that investment right up front. Maybe you do at very first want to do a little mixing, and then sound quality does become an issue. And at that point, you're gonna really want to try to listen to as many of these as you can. The problem with me making a recommendation to you is our tastes may differ. We may have different applications. Maybe, I do just kind of rock and roll stuff. I do drums and bass guitar and electric guitar and vocal, and maybe you're doing electronic dance music. Maybe you're doing rap or R&B, where the low frequencies are more important. Maybe you're using synthesizers where you've got a lot of that low frequency information, and you need something that's very accurate in the low frequencies. These, while they do have a very good frequency response, what I've found while trying to mix through these is that they have a bit of a hole in the frequency response down on the bass frequencies. You can hear the sub bass very well, and you can hear a little higher than the bass frequencies very well, but there's kind of a hole down there somewhere, maybe in that 100 hertz, maybe 120 hertz. So what I found was when I tried to mix while listening to these, which I really don't do very often, I mix using monitors in a room, which is really going to be the best way to end up getting the best honest impression of what your mix sounds like. What I found when trying to mix with these was that I was mixing the kick drum and the bass drum way too loud, and it sounded fine in these, but as soon as I played them back on another system, there would just be a bunch of kick and bass, and it drove me nuts. So not exactly the flattest frequency response down on the bass frequencies, but a very, very good sounding set of headphones. The mids and the highs, and even what areas of the bass you can hear. Oh, it's just so detailed and very crisp and clear. You can really hear exactly what you're doing. There are some drawbacks to mixing in headphones. Like I mentioned, you're going to be subject to that particular set of headphones frequency response, and if it isn't very flat across the entire frequency spectrum, you're going to end up making some bad mix decisions, and that's going to result in some mixes that don't translate well from system to system. They'll sound good on this pair of headphones, but then you play it in your car, you play it on your home theater system, you give it to a friend, they listen to it on their laptop, their computer speakers. It may not sound the same. And what you're going for here, whenever you're mixing, is you're going for mixes that translate across no matter what medium people are using to listen. You want a mix that's going to sound acceptable on all of those different playback systems. So that's when it starts to become important to invest in a pair of studio monitors. So the ones that I have behind me here that I keep pointing to, these particular ones are the Yamaha HS80M, which are, honestly, this is my first pair of studio monitors. I've had them for a couple of years now. I've gotten to know them pretty well. I know that they're not the greatest out there, but once you start searching for the greatest monitors, you start getting into a lot of money. And that's mainly the reason why it took me so long to take the plunge and actually invest in a pair of studio monitors, is that they're expensive. They're expensive for a couple of reasons. They take a lot of research and development from the company that sells them. A lot of effort by very highly paid professionals goes into studying them, testing them, making sure that things like their frequency response, their phase coherency between the two of them, their imaging, and the crossover between the woofer and the tweeter, making sure that there's no funny business that goes on right at that frequency where the woofer takes over handling frequencies versus where the tweeter handles frequencies. The interior resonances of the body, there's all sorts of things that go into manufacturing and developing a good pair of studio monitors that are going to give you the most accurate representation of your mix as possible. And since there's all that money sunk into research and development, that ends up being passed on to the consumer. And it's not cheap to buy a good pair of studio monitors, and it's certainly not cheap to buy an excellent pair of studio monitors, but we're talking home recording here, so we're not going to really stress too much about the absolute best. I mean, those you're talking, probably 5 digits to get a truly stellar world-class set of studio monitors. Why is it going to be important to invest in a pair of studio monitors versus just mixing in headphones? There's a couple of inherent drawbacks to mixing in headphones. Like I mentioned, the frequency response, but also the stereo imaging. If you think about it, when you have a pair of headphones on, your left ear is only hearing what the left headphone speaker is doing, and your right ear is only hearing what the right headphone speaker is doing. So that gives you a bit of an exaggerated impression of what the stereo field sounds like. So when you're trying to make decisions on where to pan things in the stereo field, you want something centered or a little right or a little left or all the way right or all the way left, it's going to be exaggerated in a pair of headphones. It's a little bit difficult to visualize how that's going to translate when somebody listens to it on a pair of speakers. It's going to sound a little narrower on a pair of speakers than it will in headphones. Also, headphones tend to exaggerate reverb, like the tail of a reverb. So you're going to tend to mix things a little bit drier when you mix in headphones than you would on a pair of stereo monitors. So in a pair of stereo monitors, you start to overcome some of those things. Now, both of your ears, your right ear is predominantly going to hear what's in the right speaker, but it's also a little bit going to hear what's in the left speaker. Same for your left ear. It's predominantly going to hear what's in the left speaker, but it's going to hear a little bit also what's coming out of the right speaker. It's going to kind of narrow that mix down a little bit. So when you do extreme panning things 100% left, 100% right, it's going to sound a little more natural on a pair of monitors, but it's also, that's going to be a little bit disorienting to people listening on headphones. Something panned extremely all the way left, all the way right, that gets a little weird to hear in headphones. Another thing while mixing in monitors is they tend to work with the natural reverberation in your room, and it'll give you a little bit more accurate of an interpretation of how much reverb to apply, how long of a reverb tail to apply, how wet to make something, because it's going to mimic what a lot of your listeners are going to be listening to. Now, why use studio monitors instead of just regular old hi-fi speakers or laptop speakers or desktop speakers? And it's because they are really designed with the things I mentioned earlier in mind. They're really designed with stereo imaging, with frequency response, with accuracy. What a studio monitor, what a pro audio monitor is interested in is giving you, the decision maker, the most honest interpretation of what your mix sounds like as possible. You don't want something like a hi-fi speaker that is designed with the entire purpose in mind of flattering your mix. It's supposed to make music sound good, and you don't want it giving you a dishonest interpretation of what your mix sounds like. That's kind of like asking your mom for advice on what your mix sounds like. Hey, Mom, how's this sound? Oh, honey, it sounds great. It just sounds great. Oh, that's nice. Mom says it sounds great. It must sound great. Hey, Mom, how do the vocals sound in this track? Are they too loud? Oh, no, sweetie, they sound great. They just, oh, all right. Well, Mom thinks they sound great. It must sound great. No, that's not what you want. You don't want speakers that are blowing smoke up your ass. You want speakers that are being brutally honest about what your mix really sounds like. And studio monitors aren't designed to sound nice. They're not designed to sound pretty. They're designed to sound honest. And when you're trying to make decisions about frequencies, EQ, about volume levels, about panning, about reverb and distance from the listener and things like that, you want a set of speakers that are going to give you the most honest interpretation of that as possible. Now, there are a huge range of studio monitors, and one kind of caveat here is that they are generally sold individually. So when you start pricing them, there's going to be some sticker shock because most of the time they're going to be priced for one monitor. So you think, oh man, $350, that's a lot of money for a pair of speakers. Then you realize like, oh, that's just for one speaker. Oh man. So that's going to be part of it. So save up. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it in the long run. You'll be glad that you did once you get a good pair of speakers. But when you're just starting out, your ears aren't quite trained yet. It's okay. It's okay. You know, you can mix in some headphones. You can get most of the way there. Reference that same mix on a pair of, you know, if you just have some crappy desktop speakers, or if you have a stereo system, you can reference your mix on that. Take your, you know, burn your mix onto a CD, take it out to your car, pop it in, listen to it there. But just understand that all of those other playback systems are not designed to be honest. They're all designed to be flattering. So when you start making decisions, you kind of have to average all of your results together. And that's one of the good things about having a good, accurate pair of honest speakers, is that it starts to remove some of that need to go and listen to your mix on 100 different systems just to get an average impression of what it's going to sound like. Okay, and that brings me to the next topic, which is acoustic treatment. So you've